I'm Dr. Megha Shrivastava. Today we're going to go through some of the vaccine schedules, a few resources you guys can go to, the free clinics that I've been mentioning, but then also like an immunization clinic that I'll talk about. So today we're mostly doing vaccines for adults. In the future, we'll also talk more in depth about vaccines for kids and the specific ones that kids should be getting. But this is for adults, so people over 18. For COVID, to start with, if you never got vaccinated yet, like even pre-2023, you need to get 2 doses. It'll be 2 doses of Moderna or it'll be 3 doses of Pfizer. So that'll be like a series. And they'll likely be like a month apart for each. It's like 2 to 4 weeks apart. So if you did get a COVID vaccine like prior to 2023, then you need to get the booster that was approved over the fall time that really protects around COVID and like the current COVID strain that's going around now. Those are the main things for COVID. If you've never been vaccinated, you want to at least get a few doses. And I think most people at this point have been vaccinated by something. If it's been like almost 2 years since you've gotten a vaccine for COVID, you might actually need 2 vaccines. So that would be something everyone should have their like COVID card, or like even if you vaguely remember what COVID vaccines you've gotten or like when you got it, you can go to a pharmacy or to a doctor and talk to them about it. For the flu shot, it's 1 shot yearly. And this is a shot that everyone always talks about and is very concerned about because it can cause some symptoms for some people. It does not cause the actual flu. They're never going to cause the actual illness to that same extent. So even if you are getting cold symptoms, it's really unfortunate and it really sucks. It's still helping your body get protected against a very serious illness. It obviously ranges for where you are with your risk, but if you have diabetes or hypertension or any other like diagnosis, and a lot of us do as you get older, you're at risk for getting worse disease that can land you in the hospital. And if you've never experienced that, that is so fantastic. And we want to keep you out of that, but we want to protect you against that, which is why getting vaccinated is so important. Flu shot, 1 shot yearly. There's still people that end up in the hospital from flu that can develop to pneumonia. So that's kind of the theme with a lot of respiratory illnesses. They can weaken your lungs and your respiratory system enough that it can like put you at risk for very serious respiratory diseases. That was a little bit of a tangent. Flu is 1 shot yearly. RSV is 1 dose, 1 shot greater than 60 years old, also for babies as well. If you're over 60, then you should get RSV, especially if you have any heart disease or other illnesses. And yeah, that's just 1 dose. For shingles, that is 2 shots that you get. And the shingles vaccine we'll talk about in a second. Most doctors' offices actually don't provide it there, so you have to go to a pharmacy to get it. But that is one that is you start a little bit younger than a lot of the other ones like RSV and pneumonia vaccines. So at 50 years old, every 50-year-old, no matter what your risk is, should get the shingles vaccine. And this isn't always something that's pushed, and you're definitely at risk if you've had like herpes before, like even like cold sores. If you've noticed, those are like herpes of the face, but it's not like a sexually transmitted infection that you have to be worried about. But it's something to just be aware of, that you might be at risk for shingles if you've had that before. But even if you've never noticed any cold sores or anything, everyone is like, shingles pops up kind of for many people as they get older. So, but that'll be 2 shots. It's separated by 2 to 6 months, and that you get over the age of 50. For pneumonia vaccine, it's pretty complicated vaccine. So there's like different types that people have gotten before that will dictate what you get, like what your shot will be when you're like over 65. So every adult over 65, regardless of any health issues, needs to get 1 dose of the pneumonia vaccine at least. But you might need to get more depending on if you got a pneumonia vaccine prior, and depending on like if you have any other diagnoses. If you're between 19 and 64, if you're never been diagnosed with anything and you're in that age range, then you will likely not need the pneumonia vaccine before you're 65. All of these in general, it's like if you just make sure to talk to your doctor, and having a primary care doctor is the most important, so they can kind of keep track of what you have and what you need and when you need it, because things are constantly like, depending on your age, as you get older, different things pop up with like things that you need. And then the tetanus vaccine, so that's 1 shot every 10 years. And then you may notice that sometimes, like if you go to the hospital because you've like stepped on something, they'll give you a tetanus shot, regardless of whether you've had it in 10 years or like within the past 10 years. And that's just to like offer extra protection. And sometimes it's like not aware whether you had that vaccine, you'll sometimes get that. And for a lot of these vaccines, for pretty much all of them, there's no harm in getting them a second time. People will just default to doing that. It's more just like insurance coverage that people will be a little bit it, like we need to like make sure we've looked for your past vaccine records and like make sure that we're not giving you extra because of that. All of these vaccines are very safe to be administered like multiple times, but especially like tetanus vaccine is like a very, very safe vaccine. The HPV vaccine, so that is recently over the last few years. It used to be that you can only get it up until like age 26, and now it's like up until age 45 if you've never gotten it. So if you've never gotten the vaccine for HPV, you should get a 3-dose series. And HPV, to remind you guys, is something that can cause cervical cancer, but can also cause other genital cancer. So both for men and women, to make sure you get the HPV vaccine. This is one that you usually get when you're younger in adolescence, and then you get like another one when you're like in your 20s. For people that haven't gotten vaccinated for it or are unsure, should get it if they're younger than 45. And then hepatitis A and hepatitis B vaccine. So those are ones you get when you're a baby. If you're unsure of your vaccination status for that, and if you're high risk, especially if you use substances, if you inject anything, if you are having sex with multiple people, it's really important to get vaccinated for those or make sure you're covered for it. And those are ones we can do titers for in the clinic to check for. So if you're like unsure on what your vaccination status is. So hepatitis A is 2 doses, and that's 6 to 8 months apart. And then hepatitis B is 3 doses, and that's your first dose. And then you get one a month later, and then another 6 months after that. So I know that's a lot of information. This isn't meant for you guys to memorize it, but it's kind of just to give an overview of like what your schedules are like, how many doses you get for certain things. And definitely for more of like the ones that cause respiratory illness, RSV, if you're over 60, definitely make sure you get the shot. For flu and for COVID, those are really important ones to get to keep kind of track of, because COVID is always like evolving with the boosters that are available. But currently there's a new booster for COVID and there's flu shot every year. We're kind of out of season for the flu now. So just making sure you keep mind of that. In September, they start to get available. Most of these vaccines you can get from your doctor's office. The shingles vaccine is the only one you really can't. But for flu, COVID, shingles, for a lot of them, you don't actually need prescriptions at the pharmacy when you go. The issue sometimes at the pharmacy is insurance and whether like they've seen your full record. Because if they're just like randomly like giving you a vaccine and they don't have all your vaccine records, then they're unsure in terms of like the insurance communicating with them will be unsure on like whether you qualify for it or whether you have gotten it before. That's kind of why I usually encourage people to get it at the doctor's office. For most of these, like shingles, you could just walk in, you're 50 years old, you can go in, and oftentimes, even if they say they have it at the doctor's office, sometimes it's still like you have to pay extra for it for some reason. So the pharmacy is a place to get the shingles vaccine. But for all the rest, talking to your doctor about it, and oftentimes for doctors too, if you just like talk to the clinic about doing a vaccine appointment, then that could be even like quicker to do. There's like a longer wait time for an actual appointment. So seeing that, like even a nurse visit at a doctor's office can help you sort out your vaccination records and give you. This is to see if you have gotten vaccines in New York before, even as a kid. If you grew up here, you can access your vaccine records through the site. They also have like the translation option in the top right corner of it. So making sure you can explore that. For a lot of like the New York City Health Department websites, you can translate them, and then they're very informational at being able to help with resources and accessing things. Definitely look at this website if you're unsure on like whether you've been vaccinated before. It can really help with that. This is for if you are uninsured or don't know your insurance status or just overall want low cost immunizations. This health center that's in Fort Greene in Brooklyn, you can go there and they offer everything except for the shingles vaccine. And like I said, for the shingles vaccine, it's usually like, even if you are uninsured, I believe you can go to a pharmacy. They can still give it to you. If you're over 50, I'm not 100% sure on that. For this center, they'll be able to help you. Just, I'm sure they'll have more information on the shingles vaccine there too, but they'll be able to help you with like all your immunizations as well. There's also a few other places. This is the one that's like free immunizations for the most part, pretty much for all of them, like regardless of your insurance. There's a few others that are like lower cost or like sliding scale, as they say, depending on what your income is. So if you go to this page here, also you can translate it, and then they'll have more options for other clinics you can explore that are closer by that you can go to. So definitely recommend doing that. If you go on the site, this is the Fort Greene Health Center pops up on here too. And just a reminder of some of the free clinics that are in in East Harlem and people to call for it. These are 5 ones that are really great and that accept uninsured and Medicare and Medicaid. Try to access them. I don't know what the wait time is for like scheduling, but hopefully you guys can be able to get in soon. It's definitely, as I say, making sure you guys all have a primary care doctor, no matter what your age is, what your health status is. You and all your family members should have a primary care doctor, and regardless of your insurance status also. And then this again is insurance enrollment counseling. And I know the time period, a lot of people are at work during this time from 11 to 3 on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, but you can also give them a call when you have time, like, in a lunch break or something, or go to this website. This is also the Health Action Center. You can definitely call if you don't want to go in person as well.